The snow falls in the province of Dua, not as a blanket, but as a weight. It settles upon the thatched roofs of the village and the silent pines of the forest, pressing down with a cold that seeks the marrow of a man's bones. In this silence, a young swordsman named Kato stands before a cedar post wrapped in thick straw. His breath comes in jagged plumes of white. He grips the hilt of his katana, his knuckles pale, his eyes burning with a hunger for mastery. Kato is a man who dreams of the stroke that splits the air, the singular moment of glory that will etch his name into the annals of the shogunate. He spends his nights reading scrolls of legendary battles, and his days imagining himself as the protagonist of a grand epic. But today, the straw post remains unmarked. The sword remains in its scabbard. Kato is waiting. He is waiting for the feeling of readiness. He is waiting for the moment when his mind is as clear as a mountain lake and his heart is free of doubt. He believes that greatness is a sudden transformation, a lightning strike that turns a common man into a god of war. He believes that to achieve the extraordinary, one must wait for an extraordinary surge of spirit. And so, he stands in the snow, shivering, as the sun begins its slow descent behind the peaks. He has done nothing. He has planned everything, but he has done nothing. He tells himself he is being meticulous. He tells himself that to strike without the proper fire is to disrespect the blade. This is his first deception. The deception of the seeker is often more dangerous than the lie of the enemy. Kato's flaw is not a lack of talent, nor is it a lack of ambition. His flaw is the worship of the grand gesture. He is a prisoner of the horizon, always looking for the massive leap that will bridge the gap between who he is and who he wishes to become. He views self-control as a dam that must be built in a single day, a massive wall of granite to hold back the flood of his own impulses. Because he cannot build the entire wall today, he does not lay a single stone. He goes back to his hut, eats his rice, and promises the gods that tomorrow, his discipline will be absolute. Tomorrow, he will practice 1,000 cuts. Tomorrow, he will be the man he sees in his dreams. But tomorrow is a ghost that haunts the weak. It is a land that does not exist on any map. By seeking the 100%, Kato ensures he remains at zero. He is a victim of the identity gap, the chasm between the ego's projection and the body's reality. He loves the idea of being a master, but he loathes the reality of being a student. He is addicted to the emotion of potential, but he is terrified of the boredom of progress. This is the invisible trap that consumes the modern spirit. We look for the spark to start the engine, not realizing that the spark is generated by the turning of the gears. We mistake procrastination for preparation. We tell ourselves we are gathering information, refining our strategy, or waiting for the right environment, when in truth, we are simply protecting our egos from the possibility of a mediocre start. We would rather be a genius who hasn't started than a fool who is trying. We choose the comfort of the unmanifested great over the discomfort of the manifested small. But the universe does not acknowledge what is unmanifested. The world does not care for the masterpiece that lives only in your mind. It cares only for the grain of sand you move today. Relentless self-control is not a sudden epiphany. It is not a religious conversion. It is the cold, calculated application of the 1% rule. It is the understanding that the smallest possible action, repeated without fail, has more power than the greatest intention ever conceived. Consider the life of Miyamoto Musashi, the ronin who walked the earth as a storm. Musashi did not become the greatest swordsman in history through a single season of intense inspiration. He did not wait for the spirit of the gods to move his arm. In his book of 5 Rings, he speaks of the way as a matter of constant, mundane application. To Musashi, there was no distinction between the way he held his chopsticks and the way he held his sword. There was no distinction between the way he walked through a village and the way he moved on the battlefield. His greatness was a collection of infinitesimal victories over his own lethargy. He understood that the man who masters the smallest movement masters the duel. He did not seek to be a hero. He sought to be a man who practiced while others waited for the right time to train. Musashi trained when it rained, when he was hungry, when he was tired, and when he was bored. He understood that discipline is the child of repetition, not the sibling of motivation. Strength does not mean the ability to lift a mountain once. Strength means the resolve to pick up a single stone every morning. Discipline does not mean a life devoid of desire. Discipline means the refusal to let desire dictate the schedule. Do not wait for the feeling of power to arrive. The feeling of power is a reward for the work, not a prerequisite for it. The man who waits for motivation is a slave to his chemistry. He is a leaf in the wind, moving only when the environment allows it. The man who relies on the 1% rule is a master of his geography. He moves because he has decided to move, regardless of the breeze. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates discipline. Discipline shapes identity. You do not become a writer by wanting to write a book. You become a writer by writing one sentence that you cannot ignore. You do not become a warrior by dreaming of the fight. You become a warrior by the 100th repetition of a basic strike when your arms feel like lead. Kaizen, the philosophy of continuous improvement, is often misunderstood as a corporate strategy for efficiency. In the hands of a strategist, it is a psychological weapon. It is the art of making the task so small that the ego cannot find a reason to complain. When Kato looks at the straw post and thinks of 1,000 cuts, his mind recoils. The ego fears the effort. It fears the failure. This suggests that he should rest and try when he is ready. But if Kato were to commit to only a single cut, one perfect, focused strike, the ego has no defense. It is too small to be threatening. It is too simple to be avoided. Once that single cut is made, the barrier is broken. The vacuum of inaction is filled. The 1% rule states that if you improve by a mere fraction every day, you are not merely adding to your skill, you are compounding your soul. You are moving the needle from one who intends to one who does. The man who does one thing becomes the man who can do two. The man who can do two becomes the man who can do 10. Eventually, the man who does becomes the man who is. Identity is not a label you give yourself in the mirror. Identity is the tally of your actions over the last 24 hours. If you did nothing, you are nothing. If you moved a mountain an inch, you are a mover of mountains. The cruelty of time is that it passes whether you are acting or reflecting. The minutes will bleed away into hours, and the hours into years. And the version of you that could have been will wither and die in the shadow of the version of you that was too afraid to start small. We fear discomfort because we view it as a signal to stop. To the disciplined mind, discomfort is the signal that the work has finally begun. It is the friction required to create heat. The fear of starting is actually a fear of the truth. If we start, we might discover that we are not as talented as we hoped. We might discover that the road is longer than we anticipated. So we stay at the starting line, maintaining the illusion of our own potential. This is a coward's peace. It is better to be a flawed, struggling practitioner than a perfect, stationary dreamer. The ego protects itself by keeping you in a state of perpetual preparation. It tells you that you need another book, another seminar, another week of planning. It is lying to you. You have enough information. You have enough strength. What you lack is the cold resolve to be bored. Greatness is boring. It is the repetition of the same basic movements long after the novelty has evaporated. It is the 1% that no one sees, the extra minute of focus, the slightly deeper breath, the refusal to quit when the clock strikes the hour. We live in an age of motivation, addiction. We consume the stories of others to feel a fleeting sense of vicarious power. We watch the documentary, we hear the music, we feel the surge of adrenaline, and we mistake that surge for progress. But inspiration is a chemical, and like all chemicals, it fades. When the high is gone, we are left with the same shaking hands and the same unmarked straw post. Do not seek to be inspired. Seek to be automated. Replace the volatility of emotion with the stability of a system. The system does not care how you feel. The system does not care if the sun is shining or if the snow is falling. The system only asks for the 1%. The forgotten warrior knows that the battle is won in the dawn, hours before the first horn blows. He knows that his hand will not shake, because he has taught it not to shake through 10,000 unremarkable mornings. He has bypassed his mind's desire for comfort by making the work a part of his breathing. When you master the 1% rule, you are no longer negotiating with yourself. You are no longer asking your body if it wants to perform. You have moved beyond the realm of choice into the realm of existence. You'll do the work because you are the work. Look at your life and find the straw post you have been avoiding. Do not look at the top of the mountain. Look at the ground beneath your feet. The distance between where you are and where you want to be is not a leap of faith. It is a marathon of inches. The man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones. If you cannot find the discipline to move the small stone, you will never have the strength to move the mountain. The 1% rule is not about being better than others. It is about being better than the version of yourself that woke up this morning. It is a relentless, quiet, and unforgiving pursuit of the margin. Kato eventually realizes this. He stops looking at the horizon. He stops waiting for the fire in his blood. He steps out into the snow, not to conquer the world, but to conquer the next 3 seconds. He draws his blade. It is cold. His hands ache. He does not think of the scrolls or the legends. He thinks only of the grip, the stance, and the arc. He strikes once. The straw rustles. He breathes. He strikes again. He does not seek 1,000. He seeks one, then another. The snow continues to fall, but he is no longer shivering. He has found the heat that comes from within, not the heat of passion, but the heat of friction. He has become a man of the grain, a man of the increment. The path to relentless self-control is narrow and paved with the mundane. It is not found in the grand speech or the heroic charge. It is found in the moment you decide to do the work you promised yourself you would do, especially when you feel like doing nothing. It is found in the rejection of the ego's demand for immediate results. It is found in the silence of the 1%. Commitment is not an emotional state, it is a physical act. Do not ask for a lighter burden. Ask for broader shoulders, and then earn them through the weight of daily repetition. The world is full of men who could have been. It has no room for them. It only has room for the men who are. The man who masters the small becomes the master of the great. The man who refuses the small remains a slave to the void. The blade is in your hand. The straw post is before you. The snow is falling. Do not wait for the sun. Strike. And when you have struck, prepare to strike again. This is the only way. This is the only truth. Control is not taken. It is built, 1% at a time, until the structure is unbreakable. Discipline is the only freedom. Action is the only language. The work is the only master. Finish the task, then begin again.